My name's Mark, I'm 32 years old, and I used to think I was one of the lucky ones. I met my wife, Jenna, when I was 24 and she was 22. I was a couple years into my first big boy job at a mid-sized IT firm in Austin, and she was finishing up her degree in digital media arts. We met at a friend's birthday party and clicked instantly. She was loud, charming, quick with a joke, and had this way of making everyone feel like they were the only person in the room. I was quieter, more reserved, the kind of guy who'd rather fix your router than go to a bar. But with her, I felt like maybe I didn't have to apologize for being who I was. Everyone who knew us said we balanced each other perfectly. We got married 3 years later in a small backyard ceremony under fairy lights, and I thought, in that moment, this is it. This is what happiness looks like. We didn't have kids, not yet, but we talked about it. Maybe in a few years. We bought a 2-bedroom house on the east side. She turned the guest room into her design studio, and I set up a gaming rig in the corner of the living room. We'd cook dinner together, argue playfully about what show to binge, talk about travel plans, and occasionally get into fights like any couple. But I never doubted her. I never thought I'd need to. I think the first time I noticed something was off was a year ago. She started working later, which wasn't unusual. Freelance graphic design isn't exactly a 9 to 5. But she used to at least tell me when she had client calls or deadlines. Lately, she'd disappear into her studio for hours, sometimes with the door locked, which was new. She said she was working on a pitch for a huge client and didn't want distractions. Fair enough. I respected that. But then she started taking more, solo, weekends. She'd claim she needed to recharge, book an Airbnb out in the hill country, and say she just wanted to sketch and clear her head. At first, I thought it was healthy. Everyone needs space, right? But the second weekend trip in 3 months started feeling weird. I asked if she wanted me to come, and she got defensive, almost angry. Can't I just have something that's mine? She snapped. That stung. I started noticing little things too. Her phone, once left around the house, now never left her side. She started taking calls outside, with hushed voices and a fake-sounding laugh she'd never used with me before. One night, I walked into the kitchen, and she jumped when she saw me, clutching her phone like I'd caught her doing something. I laughed it off, but that pit in my stomach started growing. Still, I didn't want to be that guy. The paranoid husband, the insecure one. So I pushed it down. I told myself she was just stressed, that maybe I was the one being distant. Then, one Saturday morning, she was in the shower and her purse was on the bed. I was looking for her car keys to move her car out of the driveway. I swear I wasn't snooping. But when I reached into her bag, I found something I'd never seen before, a second phone. A cheap, burner-looking Android, the kind you get at gas stations. I stood there staring at it, my hand frozen in her purse, like it had just bitten me. My brain went static for a moment. Why would she need another phone? I put it back exactly where I found it and closed the bag, heart thudding so loud I was afraid she'd hear it over the water. When she came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel and kissed me on the cheek like nothing was wrong, I nearly asked her right then. But I didn't. I couldn't. I needed to know first what I was accusing her of. That night, while she was asleep, I got up and took the burner phone from her purse. I went into the garage and turned it on. It was locked, of course, but the passcode was lazy. Her old phone pin, 0422, our wedding anniversary. As soon as it unlocked, the truth punched me in the gut. The phone was full of texts to someone labeled simply as K. I read through hundreds of messages. My hands were shaking. The conversations were flirty, sexual, emotional, sometimes graphic. But what hit hardest were the little things. Inside jokes she'd never shared with me. Pet names she'd never used on me. Photos from the Airbnb she'd claimed were just for work. And then there were the voice notes. Her voice, whispering things I never thought I'd hear her say to anyone but me. I miss you already. I wish I could fall asleep in your arms tonight. He's clueless, but I feel bad. I wanted to smash the phone, to wake her up and scream, to break something. But I didn't. I sat there in the cold garage until the sun started coming up, just staring at the screen. And one message kept playing in my head. It was short, just 2 words, but it told me everything I needed to know. Next weekend? I knew what that meant. I knew where she was going to be. And I knew I was going to be there too. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I went to work Monday like nothing had happened, but inside, I was unraveling. I started planning carefully, obsessively. I didn't confront her because I needed to be sure. I needed to know who K was, and what kind of person she thought was worth blowing up our marriage for. She left for her solo weekend on Friday. I waited 5 hours, then got in my car and drove to the Airbnb address I found in one of her texts. It was a modern little cabin outside Fredericksburg, all glass windows and cedar wood. She had no idea I had a GPS tracker in her car. I parked down the road, out of sight, and walked the rest of the way. My heart was pounding as I crept up the gravel path toward the house. There was a rental car parked out front. I crouched behind a bush and waited. It was almost midnight when I saw them through the window. Her arms around him. Their lips locked. The way she used to kiss me. And that's when I saw his face. And every molecule in my body went still. Because I knew him. I knew him better than anyone else in the world. My legs nearly gave out as I realized who she was cheating with. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't some random guy from her freelance circles. It was Kyle. My best friend since I was 11 years old. My best man at our wedding. The guy who once said he'd take a bullet for me. That's who K was. And suddenly, everything made sense. Everything shattered at once. But I didn't move. I just stood there in the dark, staring through the glass, while the two people I trusted most in the world laughed and kissed like I was already dead to them. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just turned around and walked back to my car. Because if they thought I was clueless, they had no idea who they were dealing with. I wasn't going to confront them that night. I wasn't going to give them the drama they expected. I was going to destroy them. But first, I needed a plan. I drove back to Austin with my jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. It's a strange thing when your world falls apart in silence. I didn't scream. I didn't punch the steering wheel. I didn't cry. My brain had switched into some kind of cold, calculated mode. I didn't go home. I slept in my car in the parking garage at work and called in sick the next morning, claiming food poisoning. Nobody questioned it. I needed space to think, to plan. I kept replaying that image in my head, Jenna and Kyle in that cozy cabin, acting like the world was theirs to enjoy. Like I hadn't spent the last 8 years building a life with her. Like Kyle hadn't sworn to me once that brothers before everything meant something. I thought back to the night before our wedding, when Kyle gave his toast and teared up saying how proud he was that I found someone like Jenna. I remember the hug, the way he clapped my back 3 times like he always did when we were kids. Like it meant loyalty. I felt like a ghost in my own memories. The next morning, I checked the tracking app again. Jenna's car hadn't moved. Kyle's rental was still parked next to hers. I called her around noon just to see what she'd say. She answered with fake grogginess in her voice. Hey babe, sorry, I was just napping. What's up? I forced my voice to stay neutral. Just wanted to check in. How's the weekend going? She paused for a beat too long. Good, quiet, peaceful. I'm actually getting a lot of sketching done. I wanted to laugh out loud. I wanted to scream into the speaker. But instead, I said, that's great. Miss you. Miss you too, she said, and then added, can't wait to be home. Home. The word made my skin crawl. When we hung up, I started documenting everything. I downloaded the entire message history from the burner phone while she was still asleep back at the house the week before. I had screen recordings, voice notes, photos, location data from her GPS tracker. I took screenshots of her bank statements showing hotel charges, dinner receipts, and Uber rides that matched Kyle's house. I needed all of it, not just to confront them, but for legal leverage if it came to that. I wasn't going to be the husband who lost everything because he got emotional. I was going to be the guy who turned their betrayal into their ruin. On Sunday night, she came home like nothing had happened. Walked in with a sun hat and a coffee from Buc-ee's, dropped her bag on the counter, and kissed me on the cheek. I almost recoiled from it, but I didn't. I kept up the act. She asked if I could help her with some file transfers for a client, like I was still her tech support husband, the man she could rely on. I smiled and nodded. Of course. That night, I lay awake next to her, staring at the ceiling while she snored softly beside me. I wondered what lies she'd tell herself to sleep so peacefully. I started thinking about Kyle then, about all the years we spent as kids racing our bikes down the street, sleeping over at each other's houses, getting drunk for the first time together. I introduced him to Jenna. I was the reason they ever met. He'd just broken up with some girl he claimed cheated on him, and I thought he needed a win. I never imagined he'd see my wife as that win. I needed to talk to someone. Someone who'd believe me, but not overreact. So I called Monica, my younger sister. She was 28, sharp as hell, and had always seen straight through Jenna's charm. They never really got along. Mark? She said when she picked up. It's late. You okay? Not really, I said, and told her everything. I don't think I took a single breath the entire time I talked. When I finished, there was silence. Jesus, she finally said. Kyle, are you serious? I saw them, Monica. I saw them with my own eyes. She went quiet again. You want me to help you burn their lives down? I laughed for the first time in days. That's the general idea. Then here's what you're going to do, she said. And for the next hour, we came up with a plan. I'd already started gathering evidence, but Monica had another angle. Jenna's freelance business wasn't fully above board. Her taxes were a mess. She'd skipped quarterly filings and wrote off personal expenses as business costs. Monica, being a CPA, offered to go through every receipt and every invoice to see how deep the rabbit hole went. "This isn't just revenge," she said. "This is leverage." I spent the next 2 weeks pretending everything was fine. I kissed Jenna goodnight, made her coffee in the morning, even complimented a new outfit she bought. She'd thank me and smile like I was the best husband in the world. It was nauseating. But during the day, I was building my arsenal. I pulled old photos from our wedding, videos of Kyle giving speeches, screenshots of Jenna and Kyle's messages beside those photos for comparison. It was sickening how easy it was to line up timelines and see all the moments when they were already slipping away from me. One night, I was scrolling through Jenna's public Instagram when I saw something that made my blood run cold. A selfie from the Airbnb in Fredericksburg, captioned, "Creative recharge with nature." But in the reflection of her sunglasses, if you zoomed in just enough, you could see the faint outline of Kyle's arm and the edge of his jacket. The one I got him for his birthday last year. My stomach turned. I checked the timestamp against the GPS history. It matched exactly. Everything they touched, every lie they told, had a paper trail. And I was collecting all of it. Thursday rolled around, and Jenna told me she had another weekend trip coming up. "Same cabin?" I asked, trying not to show anything in my voice. "Yeah," she said. "I just get really inspired out there." I smiled. "Hope you get a lot of work done." The next morning, before she left, she asked me if I could pick up some groceries while she was gone. I told her I'd handle it, kissed her goodbye, and watched her drive off. With the GPS tracker on her car, I confirmed she was headed to Fredericksburg again. But this time, I didn't follow her. I had a different idea. I called Kyle from a burner number, disguised my voice, and asked to meet about a potential freelance project. He fell for it. I set the meeting at a downtown hotel, told him I'd be in the lobby at noon. I just needed him to step inside, even for a minute. I needed a time-stamped image. I sat across the room with a long lens camera as he walked through the doors, checked his phone, looked around, and left, confused, but too arrogant to suspect a thing. Now I had him in the city at the same time Jenna's car was at the cabin, meaning he'd taken a rental again. I tracked the rental through an old friend who worked at Enterprise. The reservation was under his name. He'd picked it up that morning and was seen on the security cam driving off with it. So now I had GPS evidence, phone records, texts, voice messages, receipts, photos, and proof that both of them had been consistently lying to my face for months. When Jenna came home Sunday night, I was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open. She walked in smiling, talking about how restorative the trip was. I motioned to the chair across from me. "Sit down," I said. She froze. "What's going on?" "Sit." She sat. Slowly, I turned the laptop around and hit play on a screen recording of her burner phone messages. The color drained from her face. She didn't say anything for the first 30 seconds. Then she whispered, "You went through my stuff?" "Jenna," I said, calm as glass. "Don't even try that right now." Her mouth opened, then closed again. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to plan what's coming next." "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice cracking. "It means I know about the Airbnb. I know about the hotel. I know about Kyle. I saw you with him." She covered her face with her hands, then let out a long, trembling breath. "It was a mistake," she whispered. "It's not serious. It never meant to happen. It just, don't insult me," I cut in. "It's been going on for months. And you didn't just make a mistake. You built an entire second life behind my back." "Please," she said, eyes filling with tears. "Let's talk about this. Don't throw away what we have." "You already threw it away," I said, rising from the table. "I just came to let you know I know. And I've got everything I need." She stood up too, panicked. "Mark, wait. Can we fix this? We can go to therapy. I'll stop seeing him. I swear I." "You already stopped," I said, looking her in the eyes. "Because I've already served the divorce papers. You'll be getting them tomorrow." And I walked out of the house for the last time. The first few weeks after the divorce were quiet, almost too quiet. There were no more late-night door clicks, no muffled phone calls in the bathroom, no lies disguised as solo retreats. I slept like a rock, ate like I hadn't in months, and actually remembered what it felt like to breathe without a weight on my chest. But just when I thought I was entering the peaceful stage of the post-breakup story, Jenna and Kyle reminded me that people like them don't go quietly. I was sitting in the backyard one afternoon, grilling with Monica and her boyfriend Sam, when I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Jenna and Kyle together, smiling, holding hands, and captioned with, "Maybe now we can be honest about us." I stared at it, confused, until another came in. This one was a screenshot of Jenna's new post on her private Instagram account, one I hadn't known existed. "Sometimes love starts as friendship," the caption read, "but when it's right, it's worth the risk." The comments were full of supportive garbage. "You two are so cute." True love always wins. Ignore the haters. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. They were trying to rewrite the narrative, turn their affair into some tragic love story where I was the obstacle they had to overcome. They weren't even hiding anymore. Kyle had moved into Jenna's new apartment. They were playing house, posting coffee selfies and redecorating photos like they hadn't just detonated my entire life for a thrill. Monica leaned over my shoulder and read the messages. Her face twisted. Oh no, they're trying to flip this into a redemption arc. Let them, I said, locking my phone. I've got nothing to prove. But even as I said it, I could feel the anger rising again. Not because I wanted her back. I didn't. I wouldn't have touched her with a 10-foot pole. But because they were pretending it hadn't happened the way it did. They were trying to clean up the blood and call it art. 2 weeks later, I found out Jenna had reached out to some of our mutual friends, spinning a version of events that made her sound like the victim. Mark checked out of the relationship, she told them. He was emotionally distant. I felt invisible. Kyle was just there for me. I knew it would happen. People like Jenna always make themselves the center of sympathy. But it still hit me in the gut when one of our mutuals, Josh, a guy I'd known since college, texted me and said, "Hey man, sorry to hear about what happened. I guess sometimes people just drift apart." Drift apart? No. That's what happens when a couple grows in different directions. This wasn't drifting. This was calculated betrayal. I didn't respond to Josh. I started trimming my social circle instead. Anyone who couldn't see through her act wasn't someone I wanted in my life anymore. But not everyone bought it. A week after that, I got a call from Carla, one of Jenna's old friends. I barely knew her, but she sounded shaken. "I don't want to get in the middle of anything," she said, "but you need to know Jenna's been showing people edited screenshots. She's trying to make it look like you were cheating first." I froze. "What? It's fake." I could tell. "But she's telling people you had a dating profile while you were married, that you were messaging other women before she ever did anything with Kyle." "She's fabricating messages?" "Yeah, like she copied and pasted your old texts and changed names and dates. I don't think anyone believes it, but she's trying." I thanked her and hung up, feeling like I'd been thrown back into a war one didn't sign up for. Jenna was trying to muddy the water so no one could point fingers. Clearly, the clean break hadn't satisfied her ego. She needed to be the victim, the tragic heroine in her own twisted love story. I sent the information to Marlene, who laughed when she read the screenshots. "Let her keep digging her own grave," she said. "She tries to spread this stuff further, we'll send a cease and desist. And if she ever crosses the line, we'll sue her for defamation." Meanwhile, Kyle was also doing damage control. One of my coworkers, Liam, told me that Kyle had reached out to him. "He said he feels terrible," Liam said. "Said he never meant to hurt you, but that it just happened, and he didn't want to lose his chance at real happiness." Real happiness. What a joke. He had a stable job, loyal friends, and the respect of everyone around him. And he threw it away to sleep with his best friend's wife. And now he wanted people to believe it was destiny. That the universe had nudged him into my marriage because his heart was pure and brave. The reality was much simpler. He wanted what I had. And when he got it, it didn't taste as sweet as he thought it would. Because that's the thing about stolen things. They always carry a bitter aftertaste. I ignored the texts, the social media posts, the mutual friends trying to play peacekeeper. I focused on myself for the first time in years. I hit the gym daily. I took on a new certification course at work. I started journaling every morning just to get the poison out of my head. I even reconnected with an old college friend, Rachel. We had coffee one Saturday, and she hugged me longer than necessary when we said goodbye. A few days later, she messaged me. "I always liked you back then. Just never had the timing right." It was nice. It was slow. It wasn't a rebound. And that felt good. But then, just when I thought Kyle and Jenna might finally fade into irrelevance, I got the text that made my blood freeze. It was a photo of a ring, a diamond ring, sitting in a velvet box on what looked like Kyle's palm. No caption, just a photo. I stared at it for a full minute, wondering if it was real, wondering if Jenna was really about to marry the guy she blew up our life with. Then I saw the comments. She'd posted it publicly, this time on her main account. I said yes. Sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected places. My phone buzzed nonstop that night. Messages from friends, coworkers, even my aunt in New Mexico. "Did you see? Is she really marrying him? Are you okay?" I was fine, but furious. Not because she was moving on, but because she was doing it in a way that spit on everything we'd built. She wasn't just leaving me, she was replacing me. She was recasting the role of Mark in her story, like I was a failed pilot episode and Kyle was the full season reboot. But the final straw wasn't the ring, it was the wedding announcement. They set a date, 3 months out, quick engagement, small ceremony. Jenna's caption read, Only the people who really supported us will be there. Translation. Anyone who still talked to me was cut out. Monica read it and looked like she wanted to punch something. You should crash the wedding, she joked. Bring a marching band and a cake that says, "Liar liar pants on fire." Nah, I said, I've got something better. I wasn't interested in petty revenge, but I was interested in something poetic. So I made a few quiet calls. I sent a few anonymous tips to a few bloggers. Jenna had been up for a local art showcase run by a nonprofit that prided itself on ethical partnerships and transparency. Her acceptance was still under review, so I sent the screenshots of her fake messages, the tax discrepancies, the timeline of her affair, nothing slanderous, just the truth, and then I let the universe do the rest. 2 weeks later, she was quietly removed from the shortlist. No public announcement, just a quiet erasure from the finalists page. Jenna posted some vague story about having to step away for personal reasons. But I knew the truth. She was starting to learn what it felt like to be out of control, and I wasn't done yet. Jenna's wedding day arrived on a cloudy Saturday in late March, and I only knew the date because someone anonymously sent me the invitation. I still don't know who it was, but I had a guess. It was printed on ivory cardstock in embossed silver, and tucked inside was a note. No need to RSVP. We know you won't come. And they were right. I didn't go. I didn't say a word. I didn't text anyone. I didn't post anything. I went fishing with Monica and Sam, and Rachel joined too. We drank cheap beer from cans and laughed like people who had been to hell and returned slightly scorched but very much alive. And that was the moment I realized I was free. Not just legally, not just physically, but emotionally. Free from the endless loop of trying to be the man Jenna wanted. Free from defending myself against Kyle's envy. Free from questioning my worth every time I heard them lie about how their love just happened organically. No love grows in stolen soil. And what they had wasn't love. It was codependence dressed in wedding attire. It was two people clinging to each other, not because they were soulmates, but because they had nowhere else to turn. A few days after their wedding, I got another message from Carla, the same friend of Jenna's who'd tipped me off earlier. It was a screenshot of a private group chat Jenna had vented in. Apparently, the wedding had been small but tense. Kyle's parents had been cold and distant, several guests canceled last minute, and, to top it off, someone left an anonymous envelope in Jenna's dressing room containing a printout of every message she'd ever sent to Kyle from the burner phone. I didn't send it, but I could guess who did. Monica swore it wasn't her. Rachel raised her hands and joked about how some people still use fax machines. Either way, Jenna had a meltdown before the ceremony but powered through because they'd already paid the photographer. That night, Kyle found the envelope, and they fought all the way through their honeymoon. Jenna claimed it was sabotage. Kyle accused her of dragging his life into chaos. Jenna reminded him he lost his job and his friends for her, and he shouted back that he had a career before she came along. The cracks were already showing. Carla's message ended with, "Just thought you'd like to know. Karma RSVP'd after all." But I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt done. Done with the updates. Done with the drama. Done with their existence. I blocked both of them on every platform. I removed our shared Google Photos folder. I changed my number and told the few people I trusted that if anyone passed my contact to Jenna or Kyle, I'd cut them out without hesitation. And then I focused on the life they tried to destroy. I got promoted at work 3 months later, after completing my certification. I moved into a new place. Not the old house full of memories, but a downtown loft with no ghosts and excellent light. I joined a climbing gym, something I always wanted to do but never had the time or confidence for. And Rachel? Well, she and I took it slow. We had history, but no baggage. We'd talk for hours about everything, from horror movies to which frozen pizza brand was the best. She never asked about Jenna. She never pushed me to heal faster than I could. And one night, as we lay on my couch watching some dumb true crime documentary, she reached over and held my hand. Her thumb brushed over the scar on my knuckle from when I punched a cabinet the night I found Jenna's messages. "I'm glad you didn't give up," she said softly, "on yourself." I almost did, I admitted, but now I'm just glad I never gave up on the truth. "Good," she said, "because that's the best part of you." A few weeks later, Monica and I threw a small backyard cookout, just family and a few close friends. Sam grilled, Rachel made potato salad, and I stood there drinking a beer, looking around at the laughter, the music, the quiet joy. And I realized something profound. Jenna and Kyle had stolen time from me. Yes, they'd taken pieces of my trust, my peace, my optimism. But they hadn't won. They hadn't broken me. They'd made me stronger, sharper, more deliberate. And most importantly, they'd freed me from ever wasting another year loving people who only loved the idea of me. I found myself again in the ashes of what they burned. And the man who came out wasn't bitter or cold. He was simply awake. Awake to who he was, who he wasn't, and who he would never let into his life again. I did eventually hear one more thing about them. Almost a year to the day after their wedding, Monica forwarded me an email from an old acquaintance. The subject line read, "Guess who's on the rocks?" It was a screenshot from a Facebook group Jenna had joined anonymously under a fake name, asking for advice on what to do when your husband keeps texting his ex behind your back. The irony was so rich, I couldn't even laugh. Jenna suspected Kyle was cheating with someone he used to work with, a woman I vaguely remembered from some corporate event. He denied it, of course, told her she was paranoid, gaslighted her the same way she used to do to me. But I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel rage. I felt nothing. Because that wasn't my story anymore. That was just a cautionary tale from a past I'd escaped. So I deleted the email and turned my phone off. I poured a glass of wine and joined Rachel on the balcony, where we watched the sunset paint the sky gold. And I thought to myself, this is what peace looks like. Not justice, not revenge, not applause. Just the quiet comfort of knowing you survived what was meant to destroy you, and you built something better in its place. And that is how I got my life back. Not by fighting fire with fire, but by letting theirs burn out on its own, while I moved on to something brighter.